Was your mother afraid of Eugene Kimmi?
She was. I think she probably was more than I knew, than any of us knew, probably. She would make sure that while she stayed at the house that we all lived in until the divorce was final. And so while she lived there, we really kept a close eye on her. And if he came to the house, I mean, he would start arguments with her. He sent friends of his by to intimidate her. She would always make sure that if she went to the door for him, she had a phone in her hand to call us, and she would try to tape record what their conversation was.
And did that begin after the divorce, you said?
Yes.
Did she try to make sure she always had somebody with her if she knew your dad was going to come over to the house?
Well, I don't know that often we were there when he would come over.
Now, you told us that you thought, and I don't remember the figure, but the divorce, your mom ended up with, was it 650,000 ballpark in property?
Ballpark, I'd say. I don't know exactly.
And then on top of that, there was $2,250 a month in alimony for 5 years?
Yes.
And then for the next 5 years, it was $1,250?
Correct.
Do you know whether or not there was also an option after those 10 years to actually apply to have additional alimony for a longer period of time? Did you ever?
Oh, no, I don't know anything about that.
So on top of the 650,000, there would be several years of payments for alimony, at least for 10 years.
Correct.
Have you ever heard that the total amount was somewhere around $850,000 to $900,000 that your dad would be paying your mom?
I have not heard that. I suppose if you add up what she got in the divorce plus the alimony, maybe that is a true figure. I'm not for sure on that.
When you went to your mom's house on November 7th and you realized she wasn't there, what was the first thing that went through your mind?
As my mom, I just struggled that there could be a rational explanation for her to still be somewhere. Okay, but the only thing, if something bad had happened to her, I remember that's the first thing that we told the deputy who first arrived, that the only person he asked, is there anybody who would want to do your mom harm? And she is the kindest, most generous person that I know, and Eugene is the only one that we know of.
Are you okay? You want to take a break? So you told law enforcement at that point that your father was the only one you could think of that would want to hurt your mom?
Yes. And throughout this whole thing, he never once, as our father, made contact with us, extended his sympathies, said, "Can I help?" Absolutely not one thing. He got a lawyer instead.
You said at the time you went to the house, you were looking around to try to find your mom,
Yes.
and this would be on November 7th.
Yes.
You went through the house and you checked the sinks.
Correct.
You noticed some fibers in the lock of the door.
Correct.
Now, was that in the deadbolt, the fibers?
Yes.
And were these fibers in the part of the deadbolt that you would grab with your hand and turn, or were they in the part of the deadbolt that would actually stick out?
They were in the part of the deadbolt, okay, not the lock on the doorknob, but in the deadbolt lock where you would insert the key. It was kind of snagged on the
In the door jamb?
Right, not on the actual part that locked the door, that went into the door jamb.
Okay. Did you tell law enforcement about those fibers?
Honestly, I don't remember.
Was this a relatively new house, I think you said, for your mom?
Yes, she just moved in the year before, October of 2008.
Was there new carpet in the house when she moved in?
Yes,
Were there carpet remnants, leftover pieces of carpets that
Yes.
were unused?
yes, they were rolled up in the basement.
Do you know how many of those there were prior to November 7th?
I would say what I remember, there were a couple of, I believe she had them in bags, and they were just, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 foot strips of carpeting rolled up in bags.
Okay. Did you see the actual rolls themselves, or did you just see the
Yes.
bags?
No, it was a clear plastic bag.
Okay. And do you know how many rolls or how many feet of carpet there would have been?
I can't correctly say.
Okay, that's fair. When was the last time prior to November 7th that you'd been over at your mom's house?
I'm gonna ballpark it and say in maybe sometime in the prior 2 weeks before that, I'm not for sure. My husband went there quite often with our kids, because he was still helping her finish up the house, but myself, I would say, not for sure, but in the 2 weeks prior, maybe.
So as far as you knew about the board being broken and the pumpkin, I don't know if it's a flower pot or a figurine.
No, it's just a figurine.
About it being moved, you don't know if that happened on November 6th or sometime at least up to 2 weeks before, is that fair?
Correct. However, I do know that she wouldn't have not fixed them, because again, she lived alone, and just if something's out of place, she would have put it back.
She was a pretty neat and tidy person.
And she loved her house.
Did you notice any damage to the door jamb where these fibers were located?
I don't believe I did.